If you've been keeping up with blockbusters these past couple of years, you probably recognise this image from the Afrofuturist spectacle Black Panther, which depicted an idealised, uncolonised vision of Africa on a scale never before seen. But Black Panther's director, Ryan Coogler, has been subverting common images of blackness amongst a white-dominated media on a quieter level for years. Whether it's reinventing long-in-the-tooth Hollywood royalty, or rewriting stories about black victims of state violence from a personal perspective. It all starts in the filmmaker's home of Oakland, California. Coogler's first work, 2013's Fruitvale Station, is a dramatised account of the murder of Oscar Grant at the hands of police in 2009. The film walks us through his last, seemingly ordinary day, his various get-togethers and solo journeys through his neighbourhood, up until and beyond the point of his killing, almost entirely from his perspective. Coogler's next work found the filmmaker on a bigger stage, with the 2015 sports drama Creed, a spin-off of the beloved and long-running Rocky franchise. Instead of the famed Italian stallion, the film instead focuses on the young up-and-comer Adonis Johnson, the child of Rocky's foe-turned-sidekick, Apollo Creed.
Now the champion's coming back. He's coming off the floor now, and he's trying to...
Coogler's most recent and most famous work is Black Panther, somehow the first out of around 20 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to have a black lead.
What are you talking about?
Set primarily in the fictional African utopia of Wakanda, a place untouched by white colonialists, the film follows the struggle of T'Challa, played by the late and great Chadwick Boseman, as he becomes the revered king. Soon, he ends up having to deal with his country's buried sins and the consequences of their isolation from the world, while reckoning with his father's legacy. A billion-dollar grossing Marvel blockbuster, a low-key Sundance Film Festival favourite, and a reinvention of a classic sports franchise might seem like vastly different films on the surface, but look closely and you can trace the stylistic and thematic connections that reveal Ryan Coogler's distinctive vision as a filmmaker, from insightful examinations of black masculinity to grand rewrites of black history on the big screen. Coogler's films come from a long tradition of black American cinema. His works are made in the mould of movements such as the LA Rebellion, which explored black interiority and community in a more inclusive alternative to Hollywood cinema. Key to all of Coogler's work are his actor collaborators. Michael B. Jordan, who first turned heads in the HBO series The Wire,
this is me, yo,
would become the focal point of much of Coogler's filmography. His vulnerability, volatile performances, and multifaceted frustration, all essential pieces of the filmmaker's depictions of black masculinity.
What's that on your shirt?
I had an accident at work.
It all starts with Fruitvale Station. Jordan's performance of Oscar is sensitive, but angry, and continually frustrated by the numerous roadblocks in his path to self-improvement.
I like you, man, but I can't
I need this fucking job, bruh. You want me selling dope, bruh?
Oscar,
You need me outside waiting for you to get done, bruh?
take care of yourself.
Michael B. Jordan is now famous for his ability to keep anguish and vulnerability at the centre of his character's outbursts of rage. This carried over to his character Adonis in Creed, whose relationships with his girlfriend Bianca and his mentor Rocky are equally tender in different ways.
Get your hands off me, old man! Get your sick ass out of here!
Who could have known that Adonis would turn out looking the way he did? But the name is clearly appropriate. Coogler and Jordan emphasise his muscular form not just as something desirable, but also as a kind of armour, as though Adonis has literally crafted his body into a defence against further pain. This element carried through to his performance in Black Panther. As the antagonistic Killmonger, Jordan's body is decorated with self-scarring for every kill that he's made, disguising his vulnerability. more showmanship to match his braggadocio performance.
Is this your king? Huh? Is this your king?
Take him away.
However, Black Panther showed a slight shift in Coogler's exploration of black masculinity through Boseman's regal performance of King T'Challa.
How are you feeling today, Mama? Around.
The weight of legacy lies upon T'Challa, Killmonger, and Adonis Creed, but where Jordan's characters attempted to leverage authority through raw strength, Boseman's projects a different kind of authority.
We let the fear of our discovery stop us from doing what is right. No more.
As T'Challa, Boseman was charming and graceful, and allowed a very real human vulnerability to show for one of Marvel's most famously stoic characters. This wasn't just because of his own charisma, but the generosity in his performance, helping his co-stars to shine in every scene he's with them in.
If you are not so stubborn, you would make a great queen.
I would make a great queen because I am so stubborn.
If that's what I wanted.
He will be missed. Despite being one of the most successful filmmakers working today, Coogler doesn't hog the limelight. Instead, he surrounds himself with a constellation of talented collaborators, both in front of and behind the camera, often to award-winning effect. In Fruitvale Station, cinematographer Rachel Morrison shoots an intimate, handheld Super 16, observing Oscar's life from the same perspective as his family. While in Creed's much talked about single-take fight between Adonis Creed and Leo Sparino, cinematographer Maryse Alberti's elaborate camera work swoops around the two fighters, showing off both the building fatigue and tactical battle of boxing. The prowling camera work and patient long-take fights return for Black Panther, Coogler keeping the shot locked onto characters for just a little longer than one might expect, for a little extra oomph. Black Panther's Oscar-winning production design, costumes and soundtrack are utterly essential in building the identity of Wakanda's Afrofuturist aesthetic. Hannah Bleachler's sets offer a unique blend of modernist design and traditional African adornments and patterns. That carries through to Ludwig Goransson's score, which mixes the traditional action score with African flourishes. Ruth Carter's costume design is built around a mixture of real African tribal textures, from the vivid red patterns of the Kenyan Maasai people to the neck rings of the Ndebele women of South Africa, both evident in the costumes of the Royal Guard, the Dora Milaje.
Sorry, mother.
This headdress worn by Angela Bassett's character Ramonda is taken from traditional Zulu wedding wear, while the blankets worn by Wakabi, played by Daniel Kaluuya, is the Wakandan take on a Lesotho blanket, which means it also doubles as a weapon. Across all three of these films, Coogler has populated his productions with an array of talent that in most cases have worked with him since his first film. No matter how big the stage gets, those connections continue to matter.
I love you.
Love you too, Daddy.
But even if you didn't know anything about the talent behind the scenes in Coogler's work, you only need to watch his films to see that what ties them together is his rewriting of the way black stories are told. This all started with Fruitvale Station, which is a rewriting of how black victims are framed within the US media. It engages with the tragedy on a personal level, portraying Oscar Grant simply as a man, not sanctified or demonized in the wake of his killing. Creed's grand rewrite is that of Hollywood mythology. It recontextualizes a long-running franchise through a new cultural lens. Rocky was a champion of the collective white imagination, created in an age where black boxers were dominating in his bracket. And so along came the Stallone film, with the white man cast as the plucky working-class underdog against the wealthy, showboating Apollo Creed.
Into the face. That's the Apollo we know.
What Creed does is recenter the narrative on the figure of the black boxer. as Rocky takes a supportive role and Apollo that of heroic and even spiritual figure, and hands the reins of the franchise to his son Adonis, who even gets to claim the role of scrappy underdog as well as the Rocky theme for himself.
Go get him.
On a superficial level, Coogler's Creed isn't revolutionary. It still sticks to the tried, tested, and beloved traditions of the franchise in sports movies, right down to its indulgence in more than a couple of training montages. Where it is revolutionary is as simple as that it's the boxing movie as viewed through black culture, with moments specific to black experience permeating the entire film. Chief among those is one of the film's quietest moments. A tender sequence between Adonis and his girlfriend Bianca has him casually braiding her hair, the camera lingering on the long twists. Creed isn't so much a reinvention of the boxing movie as it is a loving revisitation of the classic joys of the sports movie through the eyes of a black protagonist, something that feels quietly revolutionary in its own right. With Black Panther, Coogler stages a grand rewrite of colonialism itself. With its Afrofuturist touches and a cast almost entirely comprised of black actors from a variety of backgrounds, he's probably the filmmaker to come closest to finally breaking the mould of Marvel's white, Western house style. Wakanda is a fantasy of Africa untouched by colonialism and imperial greed, protected by its isolationism and secrecy, and allowed to flourish under its own identity, the sheen of skyscrapers coexisting with more traditional African buildings and patterns.
We are home.
Coogler mixes in just enough elements of the real Africa to make Wakanda feel lived in, such as having the cast frequently speak in the popular Southern African language Xhosa, and filtering its English language banter through Pan-African accents.
I can't wait to see what kind of update you make to your ceremonial outfits.
As the late, great Chadwick Boseman put it, to have anything else would be to colonize Wakanda.
Delete that footage.
Unlike most Marvel movies, Coogler connects the movie to his own home and experiences by bookending it with familiar scenes set in Oakland, and relating the uniquely African-American feeling of being stranded in the United States. By ending Black Panther in Oakland, mere miles from the setting of Fruitvale Station, Coogler brings not just the film, but his filmography so far full circle. At the same time, he locates something so personal and down-to-earth within the biggest possible blockbuster. No matter how big the stage is, or how ambitious, accomplished, and phenomenally successful these Hollywood projects have become, these films are undeniably the work of Ryan Coogler. In the end, it all comes down to his home, his people, and their stories.
Why?